With E3 now officially over, we've seen the entire bulk of the new Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon information, and I'm here to talk about all of it so that you don't have to sit through a bunch of trailers, streams, and websites to get all the information you may have missed. As always, the trailers, gameplay footage, and sources will be directly below in the description, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Before we get into it, I'd like to ask if you guys would all be kind enough to leave a like on this video. A lot of time, effort, and analyzation went into this, and every like helps the channel out a lot. If not, I can't really force you to, so I'll just leave it at that, I guess. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start off by talking about the 3 new Pokemon, shall we? First off, we have Peck. Now, I probably pronounced that wrong, but I'm just gonna go with it until, I decide to change my views on it. Now, Peck was technically the first Pokemon we ever got a glimpse of in the initial Sun and Moon announcement trailer, so it's good to finally see the full thing. This Pokemon appears to be the generic bird for this region, seeing as how it's a normal flying type Pokemon and pretty much everything about it. Looks as though they went with a woodpecker theme this time around, and I'm personally expecting its final evolution to be very reminiscent to Fearow, due to its large beak and everything, but we'll see. Like all other starting birds in each region, judging by the gameplay footage, this Pokemon is confirmed to have 3 Pokemon in its evolutionary line. To save time, I'm going to leave the Pokedex entries for this Pokemon up to you to read by either pausing this video right here, or by clicking the link in the description below. Next we have Yungoos, and I promise you, I will not make any Donald Trump jokes. I know I said Nekoala looks to be the generic HM slave for this region, but due to this Pokemon apparently being in this region in very large numbers, a normal type, and sharing a similar color scheme with the other previous HM slaves, this has got to be it. I'm open to being wrong, of course, but at first glance, this seems right to me. It is known as the Loitering Pokemon and is obviously based off of Mongoose. Now, there is something really interesting about this Pokemon to me, and it's in this line of text here. This Pokemon is not native to the Alola region. It was brought here to deal with an overpopulation issue of a certain other Pokemon. So, where exactly did it come from? Unless it evolves into an already existing Pokemon, which, other than some similarities I can see between it and Zangoose, I can't really think of anything that it could evolve into, and if it doesn't evolve into any previous Pokemon, then where exactly did it come from? It's also very likely we'll see another snake Pokemon in this region as well, due to it being sent here to deal with an overpopulation issue. But it could also be talking about a bug type or flying type, due to those being popular for Mongoose's diet. Interestingly enough, in Hawaii, mongooses that have been imported are quote-unquote an invasive species, so, I guess that's where it gets its origins from. I don't know. What do you think? Could this be a pre-evolved form, or something completely and totally new? The footage from E3 unfortunately covered the Dex entry screen with an image of the Rotom Pokedex, so I don't know for certain how many evolutions this Pokemon will receive. Some people are claiming it will only receive 1 evolution, which makes a fair amount of sense. Finally, Yungoos is receiving a new ability called Stakeout. Now, what Stakeout does is that the Pokemon's moves can deal twice the normal damage to any Pokemon that switch in or enter the field mid-battle. It seems like a pretty good ability when facing off against someone who uses Volt Switch or U-turn a lot, but we'll see how useful this Pokemon itself is once we get a good look at its full potential. Like with Peck, I'll leave this info here on the screen and in the description below. The final new Pokemon we have to talk about is called GRUBBIN. Since its description is so small, I'll just go ahead and read it. GRUBBIN relies on its sturdy jaw as a weapon in battle and as a tool for burrowing through the earth. GRUBBIN loves electricity, which is why it can be found near power plants and substations. By wrapping tree branches in sticky threads that it spews from its mouth, GRUBBIN can swing around like an actor on suspension wires. By that alone, I can only assume that we'll be seeing another electric bug type like Joltik and Galvantula. An electric type that early on would be great to see in my opinion, as I personally like to have an electric type with me whenever I go through the game. Overall, there really isn't too much to talk about this Pokemon, it's just a wee baby bug. In one of the latest trailers, we get a good look at Magearna in-game. Its ability is called Soul Heart. Soul Heart is very similar to Moxie, except instead of raising its attack stat, it raises its special attack stat, and instead of Magearna actually having to knock out the opposing Pokemon itself, any Pokemon that faints on the battlefield will raise its special attack. A new move specific to this Pokemon was shown called Fleur Cannon, which appears to be a fairy-type move. Lunala and Solgaleo seem to have something called phases. Solgaleo has a radiant sun phase and Lunala having a full moon phase. According to Serebii, they seem to revolve around their signature moves, but past that, there really isn't too much on these phases right now. In terms of Pokemon that already exist, Ladybug, Caterpie, and Pichu seem to be available in the Alola region. One final thing to take note of in terms of Pokemon for this game. Each island has a guardian Pokemon, or something. The guardian deity of this island appears to be called TAPU KOKO, No idea what that means, but I can only assume it's the name of a legendary Pokemon. According to a certain Reddit post by user RainBooom, which will be in the description by the way, the player and Hal make a run-in with Tapu Koko in-game before the footage we saw at E3. Likewise, Hawaii has 4 main gods. They expect Tapu Koko is based off the god of war called Ku. This all seems to plain mythology of Hawaii and whatnot, and doing some brief searching, Tapu means sacred or forbidden, and I can't really find a proper meaning for Koko, but due to Tapu's definition, this definitely could hold some merit. If you'd like to read more about this theory, the link is in the Reddit page in the description below. Now that we talked about the new Pokemon, let's get into some new features, shall we? First up is the Battle Royale mode, or Battle Royal mode as it's being called here, but I grew up saying Royale, so I'm gonna stick to that. Since before Generation 6 began, I have been saying that there needs to be a proper Battle Royale mode in this franchise. I remember going into a few multi-battles with friends, and it worked decently enough. However, there were some limitations with moves that could only attack the 2 Pokemon in front and leave the one at my side unharmed, such as Dazzling Gleam and Muddy Water. This Battle Royale mode is a 1v1v1v1 free-for-all mode in which each participating trainer battles off against 3 other trainers. The rules are pretty simple. Trainers can only take 3 Pokemon to battle with them at a time, and whenever the trainer loses their entire team of Pokemon, the battle ends and the winner is judged based on the most Pokemon, which trainer's Pokemon took the least amount of damage in battle, and how many Pokemon a single trainer was able to take out. Furthermore, these battles have their own specific stage, with each trainer coming out of a specific tunnel and standing in their own corners with a color corresponding to what player they are. Overall, it's your standard free-for-all mode, but it is honestly a fantastic addition to the franchise in my opinion, and I am really looking forward to it. From the same footage, we get a good look at some of the trainer customization options that are possible in these games. As you can see from the main battle screen, each trainer has a different hair and skin tone than one another, which we've already seen in previous trailers, so nothing really new there. But the more important thing is that they're all wearing different outfits. It's nice to see the female trainer in something other than that weird default hat thing. But overall, it's about what you expect from trainer customization. Here's hoping that, despite the tropical climate, at least one jacket makes it into the game. I mean, there is an ice mountain. Come on, one jacket. Now, let's get into some of the features of the new battle UI, and mainly the overworld. Now, I will not be talking about each and every detail of the overworld as this video is already going to be long enough. However, I will show plenty of gameplay that takes place there. The link to the full stream will be in the description below. First off, the new battle UI. I'm talking about the bottom screen stuff. Top screen stuff still doesn't sit well with me, but I digress. Overall, the bottom screen is really well organized, and I mean, I'm actually surprised how well organized it is considering the top screen's unorganized look, in my opinion. And clicking each icon on this bottom screen functions more like an overlay as opposed to completely changing the whole view like we've seen in Ruby and Sapphire, X and Y, and actually basically anything before it. So, of course, you can see the standard buttons, which are Pokemon, Bag, Fight, and Run. However, up in the top corner, you can see a Pokeball icon that can be activated by pressing Y. Now, I'm unsure whether this will go to the last Pokeball you used, or the most recent item like the current bags have, but overall, that will make catching Pokemon a bit more convenient. Next, we get a decent view of the Pokemon selection screen after Terry's Poplio faints. Overall, it's about what you'd expect. The Fight option now tells you which moves are effective, not very effective, and super effective on which Pokemon you're fighting, as long as you fought that Pokemon once already. Big change to the battle UI is right there in the middle with the Pokemon icons. If you click each Pokemon icon, you can see which stats have changed during the battle. So let's say your opponent uses Growl. By clicking your Pokemon, you can clearly see that its attack stat has been lowered. Overall, this is a really good feature for figuring out what moves your opponent will become more vulnerable to, or how well your attacks will do against them. For experienced players, probably not all that useful, but for newbies and casuals, this goes a long way. One interesting thing to take note of about trainer battles is that as you approach them, the screen will get this shadow-like effect indicating that you're about to enter into a battle. This is useful for people who tend to skip trainers often while going through the story, which I think we're all guilty of at one point or another. Never again will I have to ask myself, did I battle this trainer, because the game will answer that for you. Also, every trainer now has in-battle models as opposed to just artworks from like Generation 6 had. Which is nice because it'll look weird to see your trainer staying behind your Pokemon, but nothing on the opponent's side of the field. Finally, we have the story. There really isn't that much to go on. Gameplay we saw is just after the players received his first Pokemon and battled Hal once, and right before the festival in honor of Tapu Koko is being held. At this festival, you're to battle Hal again, in which he'll have 2 Pokemon with him this time around, and I'm personally under the assumption he'll have his starter Pokemon and 1 Pokemon that can counter the type of the starter you chose, since Pichu can counter Poplio's type. Overall, that's really about all we have to go over this time around. We've seen a lot of good information here. What do you think of these new features in Pokemon? What do you think Tapu Koko really is? Leave comments on all your opinions down below. I would love to read them. And if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this video or more videos on my channel. And I will see you next time.